This is our 20-minute tour of our literary city. Helping me is Elliot Dixon, whose work is so arcane and avant-garde you won't ever even have heard of him, and don't even try to Google his name, seriously.
Say your name again.
I'm Henry Falcon. If you want to see what's happening on Twitter, go here. Easy. Now, I'm a writer, so I wrote some notes. Like, welcome to Dunedin. I think we said that. Now, there's about 130,000 people living here, and some say the measure of a city is whether or not it has a cathedral. I don't know. That doesn't seem very cosmopolitan to me anymore. Personally, I think it's whether or not you can buy a vinyl record or something, which would pretty much make Dunedin the last city in the south. I don't know. Maybe there's some city in, Argentina you can buy a piece of vinyl. I don't know. Anyway, from Dunedin to the South Pole, there's nothing but pretty much icebergs and bird shit. We're hanging off the bottom of the globe at the southern end of a country that's about as far away from anywhere as you can get. And the question that's always fascinated me is, how in a place like this, do you get so many writers, musicians, artists, video game creators, and basically, that's what I want to talk about for the next few minutes. This is supposed to be a literary tour, so we're going to focus on writing. But no art form exists in isolation. So the essential question is, why are there so many creative people here in Dunedin? Show them Dunedin, Elliot. This is Dunedin. We're going to run over here.
Oh, we're going to stop.
We're just going to go this way. We're going to run across a road, hopefully not get run over. It might take a second, right? For the longest time, if you were a writer or artist in Dunedin, you were out of the loop. Sure, books came here, and there was the odd painting, but no famous writers ever did. So I'm going to take you somewhere where a famous writer did come once.
Just the button.
As soon as these cars give us a moment.
Here we go.
And no.
Yeah.
And we're ready to run.
Alright.
Yeah. Go. And if you want to talk to us on Twitter, do it. We'll try and get back to you. There's a whole bunch of stuff that should be flooding into Twitter minute by minute. We'll see how that goes. Check it out. Come over here, people. So, arguably the most famous writer who ever came to Dunedin was Mark Twain, who stood here in 1896 and said, "The Scots stopped in Dunedin on their way to heaven, believing they had already arrived." He was pretty much bankrupt, running around the world saying nice things about places in the hope that somebody would pay him. There's also a pretty awesome statue of a unicorn up there. Anyway, see, walk with me. In Dunedin, we knew that there was this thing called literature. It was out there. We'd seen books. Thanks to places like the largest second-hand bookshop in Australasia, which is in fact just up here. It's called Hard to Find Books. There should be a link dropping into Twitter anytime soon. But we saw enough literature and we knew enough about art that it made us hungry. We'd tasted it. But unlike Europe or America or even Auckland, we didn't have anybody telling us how to do it. We just did. We had it's hard to find books. I recommend if you're ever anywhere here in Dunedin and you like reading, make a detour. So, I think that's something interesting. This is a city of literature, yet we have no established writing school. And surely we must be the only city of literature about which you can say that. Certainly, at Iowa or Edinburgh. That said, the first literary journal in New Zealand was started right here in Dunedin in 1947 by a man called Charles Brash, who was really the godfather of New Zealand literature. And it's said that he started this journal in that cafe over there, the Excelsior. Oh no, that could be an urban legend, but let's run with it, shall we? Now, that sort of thing's not so extraordinary anymore. But for 1947, this was a pretty courageous thing to do in New Zealand, right at the bottom of the world. And that's something about Dunedin that I love. There's no preconceptions down here. There's very little attitude. You just get on with it, which is perfect. Especially it's important for writers. Because writing is one of those things you can't really do in public, you know? Proust had his cork-lined room. We've got the Southern Ocean. But it's more than that. Dunedin is about as small as you can be and still be called a city. So there's a concentration here. There's an openness that you expect of small communities, you know? How you doing? There's an internal strength and an ease of communication. I mean, it's ridiculously easy to start a band in the city. And I wish I'd been organized to be like panning past a band right now, but come on. But also, it's very easy to be solitary, which is a key condition for good writing, I think. For instance, and we're just going to, more on that in a second, we're just going to jog down to the Octagon. Come with us, come on. This way. So, we're in the Octagon, which is pretty much the epicenter of Dunedin. And one of our most famous literary exports is Janet Frame. And sometimes I think it's as famous for her hair as her writing. But she wrote things like Owls Do Cry, an incredible biography called An Angel at My Table. And when Janet Frame came back to Dunedin, it was to try and get away from anyone who called on her. She wanted to be by herself. Like I said, she's one of our most famous literary exports. Her father worked down there for New Zealand Rail, and she trained just up there as a teacher before they put her in a mental institution. That she published a collection of short stories, which is the reason she narrowly avoided getting a lobotomy. Where was I? Yeah. Should we check the time, shall we? Also, I might just see if anybody's talking to us on Twitter. Hello, everybody. Oh, wait, we're good. We're halfway through. Hang on. We're just keeping an eye on time here, which is why we're running around. Anyway, yeah. It's really easy to hide down here. And for that reason, I think Dunedin's still a bit of a mystery to the rest of New Zealand, let alone the world. I mean, I'm pretty sure people in Auckland just sit up there thinking, what are they doing down there? We're writing, yeah? Sure, I mean, we're more connected than ever before, which is why something like this is possible. We can do this. But 250 years ago, there were no maps of this place. There was nothing. Maybe we're just waiting to catch up. I kind of hope not. Culture's information, but it's also people and objects. People and objects. And 2 out of those 3 things have a real hard time getting hacked down to New Zealand, let alone to Dunedin. So I think one of the keys is we've had to make the culture ourselves. We've always had to. Another point is that Dunedin's small. It's a small, remote city with a really big university. A really old university, the University of Otago, New Zealand's first university, and it's over there somewhere, about 1 kilometre. But really, it's everywhere, because the academic world, it connects to almost everything in Dunedin. There's lots of people here who work for it. Come this way. There's lots of students, lots of people working. Working for the university. Some very interesting dinner party conversations. There's also some very, very good writing fellowships that people like Janet Frame herself were part of, named after this man right here, Robbie Burns, the famous Scottish bard, who's a predictable sort of statue to have in the middle of a city settled by Scots. Until about 100 years ago, this was a rich gold mining town. There was a lot of money in Dunedin, and some really stunning buildings, like these. The town hall, our cathedral, which actually reminds me, come this way. Now, people have put a barrier in the way, but I think we're going to be okay. I just wanted to take you to the cathedral and show you something, because I think it's pertinent to what we're doing here. My grandmother's ashes are buried in this cathedral. There should be a photo going onto Twitter right now of her at Yellowstone Park. She spent some time in America. Looking pretty good, I think, for the mid-50s. Anyway, my grandmother wrote books about books. One of her most famous is called Books Before 5, detailing the reading habits of children under the age of 5. And it really helped New Zealand think about reading to and for children. Where is she? Where is she? There's my grandmother. There. See this? That's my grandmother. Anyway, for New Zealand in the 1950s, a book about reading to children and what books you should be reading to your kids was groundbreaking. And it's another way, I think, in which the culture of Dunedin just rolls up and over New Zealand and out into the world. That said, Dunedin's come a long way since the 1950s. There's no more gold, but we've still got the architecture. Let's take a look at the cathedral from here, because it's pretty staggering. And it reminds us, I think, that life is short, and only things like books, art, and creations really endure. That said, we're still far enough away from the rest of the world that there's no one saying that can't be done, or that's impossible, or you shouldn't do that. But let's ask when they're going to be finished. And here, time is fine. Hold up. And I think, and there's something I found. There's a stencil I found on a wall down by the harbour in Dunedin, which I think pretty much summarises Dunedin's approach to literature and more or less everything. It should be going up on Twitter right now, but in case you're not on Twitter, this is it. You see there? Keep Dunedin gangster. Now, we're gonna put over here. I think it summarizes Dunedin's approach to the arts, and more or less everything. Like I said, this town is gangster. Not the bling and bitches kind, but more like the kind that just does whatever it wants, locks it down, and keeps it real with its homies, with its family, you know. It's a town about tight connections and the people you know. And just here, as I said, is the Octagon, the centre of Dunedin, more or less. And a good time to mention that they actually took the street map from Edinburgh and just dumped it down on the hills of Dunedin. So we've actually, the two cities of literature in the world are pretty much street map twins. This is also where James K. Baxter stood in 1944 at the age of 17 and read from his first collection of poetry, Beyond the Palisade. If New Zealand has a national poet, it's probably James K. Baxter. There should be a photo going up on Twitter of him right now too. He was a sort of countercultural messiah, also, I guess, a poet who strove to express the state of New Zealand's mind. He grew up in Dunedin too. He called his poetry, and here I'm going to have to quote, part of a large subconscious personal myth, like an island above the sea, but joined underwater to other islands. That's also as clear a statement of the nature of modern art and the way we're all interconnected as I've ever heard. And just up there, you won't be able to see it from here, but just imagine that I'm pointing to a large stately building. Was Otago Boys High School. And we're getting close to the end here, but I wanted to end on Colin McCann, who went to school here and spent the first 30 years of his life in Dunedin. And you're like, Henry, he's New Zealand's most famous painter. What are you talking about? This is a literary tour. And you're not wrong, but I'm not tripping. Because near the end of his time in Dunedin, he started putting words in his paintings. And that's, for me, where I see modernism starting to slip into postmodernism. And different forms start penetrating each other and intermingling. And religious iconography mixing with typography. And where exactly what literature is starts to get pretty blurry. It's a timeline that leads here to right now. We have stories on cell phones and the general collapse of reality into fiction, just like this tour has a little bit. Because let's face it, this is not all completely accurate. But, you know, I wrote it and then I said it. And there's one more thing I want to show you. We're going to run into the library, and hopefully no one's going to stop us, because they don't like you talking too loud in there. I'm talking pretty loud, let's face it. But there's a Colin McCann painting hanging in the library. It doesn't have any words on it, but it is an exquisite representation of Dunedin. Let's just dash in here, shall we? Colin McCann was actually most influenced by a geology textbook, which is why he paints the landscape so amazingly. Basically, yeah, geology and God. Now, there it is. Turn it around. Here's our painting. 4 minutes. Let's just take a quick tour of the library. We've got a few minutes. Maybe we can take a quick tour of the library. Oh, what's this? The Robbie Burns Encyclopedia? What a very, very Dunedin book to find. I actually didn't put that there, we just happened to run into it. This is one of my favourite places in Dunedin too, the Dunedin Public Library. It has a very, very good graphic novel collection, but also extensive poetry collections, and just, it's a wonderful, wonderful place to be. We're slightly ahead of time, but you know what? There's nothing wrong with being brief. Thank you very, very much for being part of this tour today. It was a whirlwind. Thank you very, very, very much, Elliot Dixon, for holding the camera. Do you want to show yourself? Thank you very much to Vodafone for organising the phone for me, because normally I don't rock the smart, because I hide in an office all day. Yeah, this is a piece of honest truth. This is how I roll, because it's me, baby. If you want to get in touch with me, I'm on Twitter. Love to chat. First of all, I hope you enjoyed your visit to Dunedin.